Kia ora tātou. Papaki tū ana ngā tai ki mau au I whakanukunuku hia, I whakanekeneke hia, I whiuarere te hotua wahine rua ki te wai, ki tau iwi, ki tau wawā, ki te whai au, ki te ao mara mati hei wa Māori ora. Kia ora tātou. Kia ora tātou. Ngā mihi kia tātou, kua hono hono mai tēnei kaupapa. Before I get to the presentation, I would just like, well, firstly, to acknowledge Lisale. Thank you for opening our hui with a karakia. In te ao Māori, we say te hono, te whenua ki te rangi ki te whenua, te tangata ki ngā atua ki ngā tangata. So ngā mihi kia koe te rangatira. And to the TEC and to our tertiary providers that have come here in the spirit of collaboration. I've come from an institution that a very combative one, television, where collaboration was hard to come by, but through COVID, collaboration came through necessity as the government's purse strings tightened, and I was leading the collaboration work of Māori Television with News Hub and other institutions. And whilst it initially came with some cynicism and trepidation, in the end we found that through collaboration it actually lifted the water levels of all the organisations. And so when done right and when communication is open and we have strong leadership, collaboration when necessary works for everybody. In our context, lifting the water levels for all of our students is something that I think we can all get behind. Nō reira, I runga I tau āhuatanga, I acknowledge all of our tertiary providers and the TEC for facilitating this kōrero, this kaupapa in the spirit of collaboration and information sharing. Nō reira, ngā mihi kia koutou. Now, my kōrero will be focusing on, and I'll just share my screen. My kōrero will be focusing primarily on one of our primary flagship programs, flagship initiatives within our learner success, and that's our 20 critical courses kaupapa. And so the 20 critical courses is an initiative that focuses on Māori learners, on our Pacific learners, and lifting achievement in first year and lifting achievement within our student cohort. But before getting into the presentation itself, I'll just look at the climate and touch on the climate for Māori within Aotearoa. Now, as we all know, and these might come as a surprise, but when it comes to poverty, health, wealth, education, Māori are on the wrong end of that spectrum. Māori are behind the rest of Aotearoa in all of those indicators, and that leads to various issues as it gets to the far end of education, which is university. So focusing specifically on education, Māori are less likely, and these again might come as a surprise to most of us, less likely to achieve NCA level 1 than the rest of Aotearoa. For those that get through against the odds and pass level 1, Māori are less likely to get to level 2 or to pass level 2. Once you pass level 2, Māori are less likely to pass level 3, NCEA, and even passing all those levels, getting the extra credits and getting the targeted credits to get university entrance, Māori are less likely to get to that point. But some do get through, and these are just some general stats as it pertains to Māori at Waipapa Tau Matarau. But what I would like to talk to briefly is the equivalent to full-time students, our F's, 2,438 Māori students. 2,438 that got through, 2,438 that, despite the barriers that Māori often face, got to university. But that number is of a student cohort of 40,000. And so the Māori student body at Waipapa Tau Matarau is a little over 5%, which is a third of what it should be if you were to compare that with the national population of Aotearoa and where Māori sit in that landscape. So it's a third of where we need to be. Even when we get to university, Māori students across all levels and Pacifica students across all levels are actually less likely to pass, regardless of where they sit, regardless of where those 2,000 students sit and what year level they are less likely to advance or less likely to pass. And even once they've graduated, less likely to move on to postgraduate study. Now, our university, with the Learner Success Plan, has been very open about and very honest about those barriers and about those realities. And this has come directly from our Learner Success Plan. Equitable outcomes for Māori students and for Pacifica students remain significant and persistent. The primary causes identified exist throughout and affect every stage of the student journey. Every single stage of the student journey, this is problematic. And just the last point, which is what I will talk in a little bit more detail with our Learner Success Plan and our 20 Critical Courses initiative, is that critical first year courses in particular subjects are blocking progress for our students and blocking their advancement into the programs that they aspire to. The Learner Success Plan is very student focused, and one of the main kaupapa, and again, this is what I said I would be talking to in this presentation, is our 20 Critical Courses Plan, and that is our flagship program to achieve what you see there in outcomes and learning indicators. Māori and Pacific overall pass rates to achieve parity within 3 years for Māori and within 5 years for Pacifica. Now that I think is a very ambitious goal in the current climate. Parity may not seem on its surface to be very ambitious, but parity is something that our university has not been able to achieve in all of our history. Parity for Māori, parity for Pacifica. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's not something that any university in Aotearoa has been able to achieve. And so being able to push for that and strive for that parity within 3 years, such a short time period for Māori and 5 years for Pacifica, will take a lot of work on our part as Waipapa Tau Matarau. Now I'll talk a little bit about our 20 critical courses. How does it work? So we identified, our data team broke down the numbers, did a lot of analysis over a long period of time, over several months, to identify the 20 most important courses when it comes to Māori and Pacifica achievement, the 20 most critical courses in raising that number and achieving parity. So we broke down the numbers and went, if we can get parity within these 20 courses, we will get parity across the board at Waipapa Tau Matarau. Now, these 20 critical courses, it was purely data-driven. We didn't look for any faculty spread or any even spread across any areas. It was simply data-driven. The data told us exactly where we need to focus. Now, an important point is these aren't the 20 worst courses. These are the 20 courses that will have the most impact. So a course that has a huge number of Māori Pacifica student that is a little behind parity would have a bigger impact than a much smaller course that has a bigger gap to make up for parity. And so it's the 20 most important, not necessarily the 20 worst or the ones with the biggest disparity. Another important note for this initiative is we're looking for long-term success, not quick fixes. So if we tunnel vision this approach too much, then what we could end up with is, even if we are successful with achieving parity with these 20 critical courses, if we focus purely on what works and tunnel vision that approach, that we might actually just end up in 10, 15 years time with a different set of 20 courses that we need to improve. And so the approach that we're taking is a holistic one. Every step of this process, we have an eye to expanding it out and extrapolating that out to all of the different programs and seeing what might work across the board at Waipapa Tau Matarau. A part of our approach as well is to look at the high achieving Māori and Pacific programs and seeing where are some of the learnings from that. And also in large part to be Māori and Pacific led. Our working group has co-chairs, 3 chairs, one of which is from my office, which is myself, the Māori and Pacific, the PBC Māori, and the other from the PBC Pacific as well. And so it's Māori and Pacific led, and it's been crucial to get buy-in from across the faculties, and we have input and leadership at the highest levels of all of our faculties to bring success and to try and achieve our goal of parity for Māori within 3 years and Pacifica within 5. Now, how's it going? As I said, we've established our working group, and that's co-chaired by myself, Rennie Adfield Douglas from the PBCP office, and Bridget Cool, who's the Pro Vice Chancellor Education. We've run a 20 critical courses pilot that was run over the summer school that incorporated some of the 20 critical courses. 4 of the 20 critical courses were delivered in summer school, and we ran a pilot through those. With very encouraging results, the achievement for Māori and the achievement for Pacifica improved from the past year, with the percentage of A grade being received by Māori as high as other ethnicities. Now, this is a small sample size. This is a pilot, and this is the first year, but the signs are encouraging. And some of the things that we did to execute the pilot is wraparound services, is curated pathways for our students, and again, strong leadership and collaboration between faculties, which we identified was something that was a work on through this process, and something that we feel will be able to be improved across the board, not just for the learner success, or not just for 20 critical courses, but more communication and collaboration within our own institution is something that would help us grow, and is something that has led to positive results for our 20 critical courses. It's a 5-year journey, and there's a long way to go, at least 5 years, but the early signs are encouraging. And so the question is, why are we taking this approach? Why are we doing this? Now, the project itself, it aligns with our values of whanaungatanga, manaakitanga, kaitiakitanga, respect and integrity, excellence and service. It also aligns with our values of respect for tangata whenua and our commitment to te tiriti o Waitangi, but it actually goes wider than that. Part of it, and as an institution that is traditionally seen as old and conservative, this is quite a different approach to have such a targeted focus on our Māori and Pacifica cohort. The reason for that, as I said, it aligns with some of our values, but also it actually acknowledges the different needs of our different student cohorts. Māori students, Pacifica students have different needs, come from a different space, and therefore have a targeted approach. And the prevailing thought is, if it supports Māori and it helps Māori, that actually lifts the water levels of all of the university for all of our students. Mera koina, I think I'm almost up to my 15 minutes. Nō reira, koina, kia ora tātou.